All right, we'll go ahead and open with prayer. God, we ask that may we have and find wisdom to serve each other as we seek to understand you better. We understand our purpose in the world better and how to live in community with one another. And I did it again. And we ask this all in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, just a real quick recap. Last week we talked about our individual witness, how we live in different communities. We have our church community, we have our friends, and we have our work communities if we're still working, and we have so we're in a lot of different communities that we live and interact with. And in each of those, we play different roles as well. And so we have different responsibilities and different expectations in all the different communities that we live in. And the main thing that we do is we try to be true to who we are, or be ourselves in each one of those communities, no matter which role that we're still playing in each one of them. So that was us coming out from the church, going into the communities. But what about our church? What about the whole church itself? What does it look like going into the communities? And the church has two missions, an internal mission and an external mission. And we talked about that a little bit before, and how the internal mission is taking care of those that belong to the congregation, making sure that they're well spiritually, they're well physically, they're well emotionally, and they're well taken care of, with the necessities of life. We have the food pantry and different things like that. And we always tell each other, if you need anything, let us know. So that's the inward mission. Now, the outward mission as the church as a whole is the sharing and the spreading of the gospel of love and reconciliation, all things back to the way God originally intended them. And that's the overall outward mission. But this will look differently as we become part of the community around us. There's a fine balance between the two missions. The first is that if we focus too much on the outward mission, and taking care of and showing people that we care about them, doing things like social justice and being involved in political activities, then if we look too hard at those things, then the people inside the church are asking, what about us? And are we neglecting their care and their sensibilities? This is that fine line when we talk about, we say all are welcomed, but yet how do we deal with the people that have different political views than we have, that go to our church? Or how do we deal with someone that doesn't set the same mindset as us when we go through the social justice issues? So the outward look and the inward ministry needs to be balanced equally. But if we go on the other way, if we look inward and always taking care of our own and just calling ourselves a little church, and we just do, then we become kind of separating ourselves from the world. We become our own little, just our own little social group, and isolating ourselves from the rest of the world. So there's that fine balance. We're called to go out into the world and to take that message of love and reconciliation, but yet at the same time, we still need to remember the people that are in our church and encourage them and build them up, because if they're not healthy, then they're not going to be able to go out into the church or the world or our communities as well. So what does it look like when we bring, are we to bring something that the world desperately needs? And that's the gospel. We're called to go out and to take the gospel to the world. We look at the world today and we see the wars, the news is just overwhelming with all these terrible things that are going on. And yet, if people would truly accept the gospel and live by the gospel, of course, the gospel of love and forgiveness and reconciliation and truth, and the world wouldn't look like it is. But it's a completely different approach to the way the world works. And a lot of times when I talk to some educated people at schools and stuff, and I tell them about this, the gospel, if we could just live like this, they say that those magic words, the world don't work that way. Well, no kidding, the world don't work that way, because you won't let it work that way. It doesn't work that way, and that's why we're trying to change it so it does work that way. But it takes, it's been that way for so long. And I just look at the things that are on television, the movies that we see, everything is geared to this idea of we got to take power. If someone slaps you on the face, wait until they go around the corner and hit them with a baseball bat, kind of mentality that the world has. And it's so hard, because I feel like myself, I get to preach to people that agree for the most part with what I preach to, and I only preach for 20 minutes once a week. And so how much the message of living this life of love and forgiveness and encouragement of others, how much of that is actually getting portrayed in the world, when whole movie franchises are built on getting back or getting even with people. So I know I'm rambling on here, but anyway, many people will not embrace that idea of living a life of love, as Jesus asked us to do, as he demonstrated for us to do. And it's because they can't trust other people to do the right thing. They just refuse to. And that's where our church's mission comes in. We as a church need to display that as a church community within ourselves. We need to base everything that we do on this idea of living a life of love with each other, so that when we do take that message out into our communities, they're like, well, they're doing it and they're living it. And so that's what people see, and they want to be a part of that because they see it working in our churches and in our community. Does that, was that?
You would always have that.
I can barely hear you. Okay. So, so the church, when we go into the communities and we help those that need help, we show the community how to love on each other and encourage each other and lift each other up. So they say, they come back and they say, this is the example of the community that we live in. And we want to be a part of a community like that instead of one that is full of mistrust and what have you there. Trying to gain power and I'm trying to think, I think the next slide says that too. But being seen for what we're doing good, in other words, the things that we do, we need to make sure that people see this, and they not only see the things that we do that are good in the community, but they look back at us. And it's that idea of letting your light shine, setting your light on a hilltop and letting it shine before people, and people will come to that. So that's our taking that our community or our church into the community and being part of that. It also leads them to us. This is what they need. We need to shine as a community of love and forgiveness. And when people see that and they see what we're doing in the communities, then we're actually doing, spreading the gospel. People want hope. They want some relief from a world that demands they always be on guard, to be better than the person next to you, to rely on yourselves, or if you can't rely on yourselves, gather a few people together and rely on them. And you're not in a community with them. You're just kind of using them to give yourself power. So people want hope from this. We need to hold a spotlight on our community and show them how we can live, and we can live in community that is full of love and forgiveness and caring for one another. And that community is overflowed into the community around us. Our church is just an overflow of the love that we have for each other into our surrounding communities. And when people see that, they want to become a part of our community. And so that's our place as a church in the communities. When we can say, come and be part of us, we are a loving and forgiving community for all that believes all are equal and all are welcome and all will be treated right here in our church community. Thoughts? Anybody?
I think we may have had a good impression this past Sunday on the new person who was in church. And likely she will return. And she was very impressed with what we do and how few people do it. And she even said, well, I'm a volunteer. And I said, good. And I talked to her about my ministries, and I talked to her about Jill's ministries, and she's she saw you at the interfaith service and decided she needed to make a change.
Well, that's
So
good. That's what we want.
That's exactly what we want.
Yeah, we want to be seen in the communities doing the right things where people ask us, what do they have that makes them different from everybody else? In other words, makes them different from the world, because we're supposed to be different from the world. And so, if not, then we might as well just turn our church into a country club and just say, hey, come on Sunday, we'll talk about spirituality, and then we'll have a dinner and have some good times.
Pop a bottle of wine.
Exactly. Exactly. But we need to, and I hope I know that I have passion, and I feel called to bring this message. And I look at the church as giving me the platform for bringing this message to not only to the church, but to the communities around us. And that's a message that the world needs to change. And it's the message that Jesus brought, that stop competing with each other and start working together. And the world will be a different place.
I think it's important as we're moving out of COVID. I mean, COVID's still around, but our mindset is changing to where we're going to be more active and, more out there. I think it's important that we are cognizant and intentional about our place and our purpose in the community. Because, in order for this little church to survive, we're going to have to grow one way or another. And it's easy to say, oh, we could do a mass mailing, or we could do this, make our name more visible. But really the way we're going to get people in the door is by doing what you were talking about, making an impact on the community, loving people, being accepting, welcoming all. And when they see that, it'll reckon with them that this is a place I want to be. Mm-hmm. I think that's something that we really need to be thinking, not just as a church, but so that's, our church's mission, but it's also our mission in our everyday life when we're out there in the community and having these same kind of global aspirations for the world, and just break it down into our everyday and like, what can I do today to make this reality? Mm-hmm. And how to bring my faith and my spirituality into my community. So I think those, that's a really good thing for us as a church to be focused on. I wish there was more people here to hear this message, because I really do think it's very important that we are intentionally thinking about it, because, to sustain our church, growth is a real thing. And no, we're not focused on numbers, but I do think that there are a lot of people out there looking for what we have to offer. It's just the only way to get them in the door is meet them where they are, I guess. So I think it's a good message to be reminded of, about how, the community is impacted by our church.
It's unique how we can impact somebody. Today I was yesterday actually, doing taxes for a young lady named April. And somehow I'm open and affirming and respectful to people. And this young lady was a baker from Busch Gardens, and somehow little tidbits came about. And I mentioned that I tried one of the tarts at Busch Gardens Wine and Cheese Festival and how great it was. And she goes, we're always curious at how much they charge retail. And I said, I really don't know. So I took a leap of faith and said, but my husband bought it for me, and I didn't really know what he paid. And that led to me ultimately giving her the name and address of our church, because she's looking for a church.
Mm-hmm.
But it's you can't just fill that out, the first word out of your mouth. But right. I knew that if I said my husband bought it, perhaps we would get I had 30 seconds, a minute and a half to do this whole commercial, but right. But she may come to church,
Right.
That's excellent.
But it's being in the community, doing what you do.
Exactly. And I think that there are people out there that that need to see us for who we are, because we are a different church. We are not your church of your grandparents and the
Exactly.
traditional church, because a lot of people look at a church and they've been traumatized by it. They've had that spiritual trauma or that religious trauma where they just don't want any part of the traditional church the way it's been all these years. And so they want something different. They're looking for something different, but they're still looking. And I think that, I don't want to say the church has failed, but I think that the church has, as a whole, has gotten into a rut of this is the way we do things, and you've got to do it this way. And they've stopped going to people and ministering to people. And
Right.
instead, you come to us. You come to us and we'll fit you into where we think you best fit. Instead, people don't want that. People say, I want to go where I feel I need to go. And by us being in the community, the church being in the community, doing different things, and they can get involved with us through, not through the church, but through what we do in the communities, then they'll look at us and say, oh, you're not like the church I knew, and be attractive to them.
Right. It had a really similar issue to Joe with our dog walker. When we went to Legoland, we had a new dog walker come in, and so she came over to meet and greet the dogs. And when I said, my husband is a pastor, I saw her like tense up, and I noticed that reaction, but I didn't say anything to her. And then she texted me and said, "Is it okay if I bring my partner to walk the dogs, because we're going to be out to dinner?" And I said, "Sure." So when someone says the word partner, we lived in Europe for a long time. Everyone calls their spouse their partner. It's not necessarily a same-sex thing. But here in America, that a lot of times means, a same-sex relationship. So when I contacted her about sitting while you go do Lauren's wedding, Lauren and Michael's wedding, I told her, that we're going down to a wedding for, two gentlemen in our congregation. She just opened up the floodgates about how, she was so glad to hear about churches that are accepting and do weddings like that. And, and she shared more about her story and her wife and that sort of thing. And she asked questions about our church. So it was like, there's people that are just really needing what we have to offer and being validated and feeling welcome for who they are. And they don't have to, I felt like in our first interaction, when I said Ed was a pastor, she had to guard that part of her life. And, that was, that was sad to me. And so when I was able to open up to her a little bit more, it means a lot to her. It meant a lot to her, that Ed was, not only doing weddings like that, but that we accept her and, we love her for who she is. And, it was just little small things like that. There's just lots of people out there waiting to hear that message. And that's just small ways that we can bring that, what we're doing at church into our community.
Yes. Yeah. That's one of the reasons why I'm really big on getting us out there on social media. We've got our website now. We put this will go right onto our website. It'll also go onto YouTube and all the stuff that we do on Facebook, because that's where people are being connected nowadays. That's where, you don't go to the local malt store and the malt shop and hang around in your car. You go on Facebook and you see things there. So that's exposing us to the people. And not only just, it's Faith Family, but they can see our services. They can see our teachings through these studies. And they can see that we're not your typical church. We do really believe that we are welcoming all people. So
that is so true. Just think about the last time you may have went to a restaurant without checking it out on social media first.
Right.
Where it's at, what are the reviews, and people are doing that before they come to our church. So I commend you for keeping that alive and active. And it's also really cool that even though we may be predominantly GLBT, we have a straight couple as our pastor. And I mean, that shows that we're all inclusive. And that's really the world I want to live in.
Exactly. We want our church to look like the world the world we live in.
Exactly.
Yeah, the
Exactly.
world, yeah, and the world we want, the way we want the world to be as well. So
Well,
that's,
Ed did this TikTok a couple weeks ago about being open and affirming and what that means. And you get a few comments people are like, yeah, I don't believe that. But this one person said, that's the kind of church I want to go to. And, they probably don't live anywhere near here. Maybe they'll look in our service or check us out somehow. But just even letting people know that that's a possibility, that there's churches out there like us, it can make a difference. So, our social footprint means a lot. I wish we
Well, the frustrating part is it takes so many of those contacts to get one person to walk through the door.
exactly.
What I would do mailings in the restaurant business, if we got a 1% return, we were related. That's 1 out of 100, so God, how many people we're going to talk to get, but that's what it takes. Consistency.
yes.
Yeah. I will say that after Pride, we did see looked at the in the analytics on our website. We did get a couple hundred visits to our website. So
Nice.
if we only get 1 or 2 people come and check us out, I guess we'll be doing good then.
Right. And if those 1 or 2 people tell somebody else,
Exactly.
I mean, we got to just consistently keep up the effort and stay positive on it.
I agree.
And I think, us moving forward, once we get established of what area we're going to be in, I think that'll help us as well, because then we've got a visual, people have a visual of where we are and
Mhm.
everything.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to the demographics you might share.
Yeah, that's going to be next Tuesday. Next
Cool.
Tuesday at 7, we'll do a Zoom, and I'll actually send all the reports that I have made had made for us. And I got 4 right now. And so.
How up to date are those? I know that because they're building houses quicker than they could probably count them in this area.
They're up through 2020.
Okay.
And then they project out to 2005 or 2025,
Okay.
and then 10 years out. So
Okay.
anyway, so we'll go ahead and close it out, because we're right at 30 minutes and they're trying to turn me off here. Thanks, everybody. We just need to show the love that we have for our church in our communities, and hopefully it gets a return.
Amen. Before we die.
Thank you.
Amen.
Thanks,
Good
everybody.
night, everyone.
Good night.